I'm Gary Schnitke.
And this is Nick Paulson.
And we're here for our third FarmDoc Daily, Farm Program Decision Tool webinars. So far, what we've been doing in these three webinars, we've had one for each week, and we'll do this next week as well, is just introduce this tool, and we're going to start tailoring these more to more specific information as we get closer to the times in which we can make decisions. Again, what we're going to do today is talk about the tools and the overall process of making decisions. The tools that we've developed is based in a coalition. You can see the members there. University of Illinois, Watson Associates have been our main developer of the APAS solution tool, which you see to the right of your screen. Ohio State University, Carl Zuloff there. Michigan State, Roy Black, and the Delaware State University of Arkansas, Pine Bluff, North Carolina A&T, and Montana State University. So that's who's all involved in this effort. And again, where we're at here is we have a Farm Bill toolbox on FarmDoc, and we'll be talking about this. I'm just going to go there right now. You see that on the right-hand side of your screen, and we have put together a set of 7 steps to make the 3 decisions. Collect information, and we're going to spend some time talking about that today. And then these steps go through the process: collect information, keep or update yields. And again, we'll talk about that a little bit more today. Keep or update yields. You can keep your current yields or update them to 2009-2012 average. Retain or reallocate base acres. And then the 4th, 5th steps make the comparisons to the programs that exist out there. We also want you to consider SCO because it's only available on their PLC, and then finally sign up. So that's our 7 steps on our FarmDoc Farm Bill Toolbox webinar. If you go there, you'll see that we have under each step information. For retain and reallocate, we have a fact sheet. You can also watch a video on base acre reallocation, information needs, and then get some more examples on how to use the tool. The other piece that we will be demonstrating too is the APAS tool. Here you see the website for that. That is this program right here. Right now, I guess we'll go. Oops, I did something not good there. All right, there we are. Let's just talk about the decisions that you have to make. You have one-time irrevocable decisions per FSA farm. So this is a FSA farm decision. You will, if you control or own more than one farm, you will have to make these decisions for each one of these farms. It's irrevocable. It will only, you can't change it through the life of the Farm Bill, which is scheduled to run through 2018. So this will last for these decisions will last for the 5 years of the Farm Bill. And again, they're irrevocable. There's 2 deadlines: February 27th, March 31st. February 27th, you have to determine whether you're going to update payment yields or retain or reallocate base acres. Those decisions, again, we'll go through and talk about each one of those and how we can use the tools to make those decisions or provide useful information. The next deadline is March 31st, which is the program election decision, which is ARC. You have 3 choices: ARC County, ARC Individual, and price loss coverage. ARC County and PLC, you can assign or decide to use that on different crops on an FSA farm. So if you have corn, soybean, and wheat base acres on a farm, 3 sets of base acres, you could assign ARC County to corn and soybeans, PLC to wheat. ARC Individual, once you make that election, it applies to all farms. The big thing there is you'll see the supplemental coverage option there at the end, and and that is only available if you take price loss coverage. Am I missing anything there, or are we?
I don't think so, Gary. It's again, we want to emphasize the fact that these deadlines are not coming up next week. At the same time, this is the time frame when you should be doing your homework, gathering your materials, gathering the information you need to make an informed decision about the programs. When we say it's best to delay the decision, we don't mean you should go into the FSA office on February 27th and expect to walk right in and make a decision. But it's not a decision that needs to be made next week, for example. So we have a few months on both of these deadlines. And now is the time to educate yourself about these options, educate those you work with about these options, and either gather your own information or help those that you're working with gather the information they need to make that informed decision. Again, we are getting some questions coming in already. A few of them, they're on a variety of topics here. We have the programs, we have the base acre reallocation, we have the payment yield updates. We'll try to answer those when we get to those topics. If you've submitted a question, we haven't answered it yet, we haven't forgot you or ignored you. We'll just try to address those when we get to those specific topic areas. But Jim's helping us kind of collect the questions. We will answer as many of those as possible.
The one thing to note about these programs, though, is they are separate from crop insurance, except SCL. Ark County price loss coverage are separate from crop insurance. Really nothing from your crop insurance records flow over into Ark County, Ark Individual, or price loss coverage. They're separate decisions. Price loss coverage is a target price program. Only thing that matters is what happens to market year average price, and Ark County is a county-level program. All right, as we mentioned before, there's 7 steps that we suggest going through for making the decision. Step 1 is to collect information, and there are 2 things that you're going to need, and you hopefully have both of these, but you might want to spend some time getting these. In August, you received a letter from FSA, and that included 3 things: base yields, acres planted, and also program yields. And we're going to show you an example of that letter next. And you need that information along with a yield history from 2008 through 2012. So big thing there on the yield history is that you will send a document in that self-certifies yields from 2008 through 2012. If you're audited, you will need to provide outside verification of those records. Crop insurance records are accepted, as well as settlement sheets, warehouse receipts, or anything of that nature. So, big thing though, FSA August letter. Top hand here is what that letter looked like. This is a FSA letter. Ward County example, Dear Producer A on February 7th, 2014, and you can see the wording of the letter. It was dated July 28th. It's likely that you received that not on July 28th, but sometime in August. At the bottom of the screen is a data sheet or data example, and you should have gotten one of these for each one of your FSA farms. If you're looking at this, and now I'm going to take this up and I'm going to take the letter away and put just the box there. This is the box that you should see. It'll give you the county, state of the farm, farm number in this case is 12. If you don't know where that farm number or what acreage that relates to, you might want to figure that out with FSA help. Each one of your farms should have received that. And there's a box at the top that has 2014 commodity, 2014 base acre, and 2014 counter-cyclical yield. 2014 commodity, in this example, it's barley, wheat, and canola. And so this could be corn, soybeans, wheat if you're in the Midwest, peanuts, rice, cotton, or wherever you're at. But these are the 3 program crops on that farm. 2014 base acres are the current allocation of base acres in the crop. In this example, it's 25.7 acres of corn, 12.6 acres in wheat, and 8.7 base acres in canola. Add those up, that will be the total base acres on your farm. And we'll give you an example using this data as we're moving through this using our APAS tools to calculate base acres and reallocated acres. The other thing you'll see here is 2014 countercyclical yields. Here we have 42 bushels for barley, 28 bushels for wheat, 114 pounds for canola. Those are the current program yields. You will have a possibility of updating those. At the bottom of this sheet, you'll see crops listed, in this case barley, peas, and wheat. You'll see acres listed as planted, prevented, double, and subsequent crop. Planted acres are what are planted. Prevented, obviously, are prevented planted acres. Double crop are double crop acres, and subsequent acres are anything that follows a declared acre that's prevented planting. For the acre reallocation decision, we only want or need planted, prevented, and double crop acres. Subsequent acres don't enter into the calculation. We also need those yields for acres from 2009, 10, 11, and 12. They report 2008, but these numbers are not going to be used in the 2014 farm program decisions. Most important thing you can do now is make sure all of this data is correct. If it's missing, find it. And if you've thrown this letter away, you might want to try and get it back or something. This was one letter that may have looked like junk mail, but you really did want to keep.
I guess the only other things I'd add here, and maybe this will address a few of the questions that have come in. So again, those the 2014 base acres and the 2014 countercyclical or CC yields that are listed at the top there. Again, you'll have a table like this, or should have a table like this of base acre yield, and then your acreage from 2008 through 2012. A table like this for every FSA farm that you're involved with. Again, the base acres and CC yields for the commodities listed at the top of that table, those are the current base acres. So when we're referring to choosing between current or reallocated base acres, the current or existing base acres are the ones listed there at the top of that table. The current payment yields are the 2014 CC or countercyclical yields listed at the top of that table. So when we get into the payment yield decision, you have a choice between your yields that you have now. Those are those 2014 CC yields. They're the countercyclical program yields. They're not the direct payment program yields. It's the countercyclical yields that you currently have on file. One option is to keep those the way that they are. The other option is to update. On the base acres, again, one option is to just leave the base acres the way they are. The other option is to reallocate. The planted acreage numbers in the lower portion of the table, then, those are the numbers that are important for that base acre reallocation decision.
Couple points here. These 2014 countercyclical yields, those are your program yields on record. Back in 2004, you had the opportunity to update program yields. If you took the opportunity to update those yields, it would be based on those yields that were done in the 2004 Farm Bill. If you did not update, they go back to the way back. So if you took the opportunity to update in 2004, those are the yields that should be showing here. That also raises the point, well, why we're going to, as we get into the yield updating, we're going to tell you to update yields even if you do not choose price loss coverage, because these program yields have a way of sticking around. Again, 2004 was the last time you had the opportunity to update them, and that's what's showing up here. If you didn't update them, you go back to the 1980s, and bigger is better than not. This letter should have been sent to landowners and producers. Anybody that had an interest in that farming operation should have received that letter. One of the, and as we're going through this, some of the more interesting situations could be who is going to make this decision. Is we're changing farming operators through this year. The person on record, farmer on, let's just talk about this in terms of the program updating, program choice decision. Program choice decision is the decision of the individual with the interest in the crop. So if you're cash renting, program choice decisions really are the farmer's decision. If you're share renting, both the landowner and the farmer have to agree on it. The person on record will be making those decisions. So if you change, or if a farmer changes on a piece of land, like if a farmer is going to farm the land in 2015, puts his name on the record with FSA, the new farmer will be making the decision on program choice. And yes, the program choice decision that farmer makes will determine the payments that the previous farmer gets for 2014. So, and you can change these decisions up to the program deadline. The yield updating and the acre reallocation decision are the choices of the landowner, and so the landowner will be making these decisions. All right, there's the letter. Get it. Make sure the acres are correct. Make sure all the information are correct, and this will be the point of decision, or will be used in a lot of decisions. Our step 2, again, we're referring back to our steps on our FarmDoc Daily. If you go to step 2, you can see a lot of the information that we're presenting here today is also given here. Step 2, update yields. Update yields is a landowner decision. It's to keep the current yields, which are in that FSA letter, or up to 90% of the 2008 through 2012 average yields. And there are plug yields involved with this. You will need a crop history, obviously, and you will need to document those yields. The way this will work as far as with FSA is a form will be turned in with the 2008 through 2012 yields. No documentation will be needed at that point in time. The individual will sign that document, self-certifying the yields. If that yield record is then are audited, documentation will be needed to be provided for those yields. Documentation would include settlement sheets, warehouse receipts, crop insurance records. There's a number of items actually, and they are listed on a fact sheet on our keep and update. If you look at this fact sheet, it'll give you more details about the types of information that are needed. I'm going to run through an example of what updated yields would look like. And I'm going to start here.
All right. Yeah, and I think Gary's going to show you the payment yield update quick calculator that's built into the APAS tool. Again, we have kind of different options you can use in that tool. If you want to spend a lot of time entering individual farm information, we have the build your own farm option. But we also have quicker pieces of the tool that are a little bit quicker to use and don't require as much data entry. And then we've also created these individual quick calculators for the payment yield update decision and the base acre reallocation decision. So what Gary has here is 3 examples. He's got a Champaign County example here with some corn yields. First example, maybe it's a continuous corn situation. So on that FSA farm, they'd planted corn every year from 2008 to 2012, had a corn yield that they could use every year in that yield update decision. And Gary's gone in and selected Illinois, Champaign County, corn in our payment yield update quick calculator. The reason for that is in the payment yield update decision, there is what is called a plug yield that is used if you have a year where your yield fell below, was particularly a bad yield year. There are minimum or plug yields at the county level that FSA will plug in for that payment yield update. So as Gary selected Illinois, Champaign County, and corn from those drop-down menus, you can see the minimum yield or the plug yield for the payment yield update decision is 121.2 bushels per acre. So if you have a year in your yield history where you planted corn and you had a yield less than that 121.2, the tool will automatically plug that 121.2 number in. So Gary's showing an example of that right now. Yields were 174 bushels in 08, 186 in 09, 168 in 2010, 162 in 2011. Then in 2012 with the drought, this farm had 107 bushel yield, and that number will be replaced by the 121.2 bushel per acre plug yield.
Example 2 here, by the way, and I'm just going to, example 2, we don't have the yields for 2009 and 2011. This might be a 50-50 crop rotation situation. If we don't have any planted acres, then there will be no yields for those years. In our tool, you'll leave those blank because blanks really do mean that there were no yields planted. And in this case, plantings in 2008, 10, 12, no planting in 2009 or 11 because there was no corn on that land. The average will then be based on those 3 yields.
Right. So the key thing there is a very low yield is treated much differently than a year where you simply did not plant the crop. So in this case, we've got yields in 08, 2010, 2012. Yields in 2012 were below the plug yield, so that plug yield gets used in place of the actual. And the average here is based on the 3 years for which you have yields or for when corn was actually planted on this farm. So in this case, it'd be the average of the 3 years where there's yields. 90% of that is that updated payment yield of 138.96 bushels per acre.
And yes, if you only have 1 year of yield, it will be 90% of that 1 year of yield. So if you have 1 year of plantings, your updated yield would be that yield. Our third example here, example 3, is you have no documentation for 2008. And acres were planted in that year, but you don't have the documentation to support that. And let me give you an example for how that may be. A farm may have been rented to a new operator in 2009, 10, 11, and 12, old operator in 2008, and it's simply not you can't get the yield information. In that case, if there's no yield information, the plug yield will be used in that calculation. So no documentation. If you can't provide it, plug yields will be used, and that obviously doesn't help the average, because this minimum yield here, this 121.2 for the Illinois Champaign County case, is 75% of the county average. So that helps for years like 2012, but doesn't help in years in which we don't have the yield. I all of a sudden went 109 in 2012. which would have been a very good yield for that year, but we'll go back to our 107 and get it replaced by 121.2.
And we did get a question. It is true that, again, that plug yield of 121.2, that is a county level measure, county and crop level measure. That would be different for soybeans in Champaign County. It'd be different for corn in a county, in a different county, in a different state. And those that's not just relevant for 2012 because of the drought. It's relevant for any year in which you had either a yield, actual yield that was below that plug yield, or as Gary said, it can be used in years where you did plant the crop, but you do not have any documentation to back up an actual yield number. Again, in case there is an audit.
So we're going to go on to our third step here: retain or reallocate base acres. And again, decision 1 and decision 2, update yields. Decision 1, retain or reallocate base acres. Decision 2 are the landowner decisions. Each FSA farm has same base acres, whether or not that farm is if we have a share rent situation, there's 80 base acres on the farm. The base acres remain the same, whether it's share rent or cash rent, but the share payments will differ. Again, the retain or reallocate is a landowner decision. An important thing here is that it will not increase or decrease total base acres. Base acres are going to stay the same whether or not you keep current base acres or reallocate. The only thing that you're going to do is change the acres in crops.
Yeah, and again, the period over which, so the yield history that's used for payment yield updates is 08 to 2012. The time period where planted acres can impact your option to reallocate base is 2009 to 2012. So they are different time periods. I think we even still get them confused, but it is a 5-year history on the payment yield update and a 4-year history on the base reallocation. We did get a question here. It might be good to just answer this now. What happens if we have bean base acres but planted all corn in those yields? The question is about how that impacts yield updates, but I'll talk about how it impacts base reallocation as well. So again, the question is what happens if we have base in one crop but we don't plant that crop anymore? We've been planting something else. In a case like that, if you're not planting the crop, and again the question was, we have bean base, but we haven't planted beans. We've only been planting corn since then. It'd be difficult to update your bean payment yield, or you wouldn't have information to update your bean payment yield. You would be able to update your corn payment yield in that example, because you'd have the yield history for corn. And then the real what that would impact on the base acre reallocation side is you'd be shifting your base acres from corn or from beans, your current base in beans, to corn. So if you've been planting all corn on a farm that was all base in beans, your reallocation option would be to shift all those old bean base acres to corn base acres.
We're going to give an example of reallocating base acres now, and this is from that letter that we showed earlier today. And here we have our current base acres, and again, barley, wheat, canola. We had 25.7 base acres in barley, 112.6 acres in wheat, 8.7 acres in canola. And then here's our planted acres from 2009 through 12. We had dry peas in 2009, 129.78 acres, which just comes from here. Dry peas in 2012, 109.4 planted acres, 13.00 prevented planting acres. Prevented planting acres count in our total when we do these reallocations. Wheat, 2010, 2011, and 2012, the 139.7 acres of wheat in 2010 is 117.28 plus 22.5 to come up with that total. Same way with wheat in 2011, wheat in 2012. So, prevented, planted, double, enter into the calculations of acres used in these allocations. And I am now going to go into our base acre allocation tool and show you how we could do these calculations here. And actually, what you would do.
Start from the beginning.
Yeah, I don't know
how. You
how.
can delete them.
Oh, okay. Delete them. There we go.
And what Gary's going to do now is he's going to set up the base acre reallocation. Again, this is the quick calculator you can go in and use. So he's going to go in and add all of the crops for which there are current base acres, in this case barley, wheat, and canola, because we're going to want to enter in our existing or current base from that letter. That's going to, again, be one option when we're looking at this base acre reallocation decision on any given FSA farm. We can always leave the acres under their current configuration in barley, wheat, and canola in this case. And then he's also going to add in addition to those three crops, peas, because peas were planted. Even though they don't have current base, they were planted from 2009 to 2012. So the producer here, or the landowner, would have the option to shift some base into dry peas since there were some acres planted. So again, Gary's just entering in the current base numbers for barley, wheat, and canola, and then entering in the planted acre from the 2009 to 2012 history. Again, in current base, the only crop that was planted that had current base was wheat in this example. And then we've added dry peas because even though it doesn't have current base, it was a crop that was planted from 2009 to 2012.
So now I'm going to hit the calculate reallocated base. That's a tongue twister, at least for me. Oops, and
I think we got some commas instead of decimal points in some of our yield numbers here.
Ah, there it is. There it is. I see it.
And maybe one for wheat too.
The problem is that you should never do this live. You will make less mistakes.
I think your dry peas yield is still a problem there.
Yes, it is. Is that 129?
It's also an Apple keyboard, so we can use that excuse.
All right.
There we go.
There we go. So we have total base acres here of 147 base acres, which is just summing up 25.7 barley acres, 112.6 wheat acres, and 8.7 canola acres. And here's our base acre reallocated. So these are our two choices: base acres existing or our reallocated base acres over here. And our reallocated base acres for wheat, if you did the math, if you added up all the wheat acres planted from 2009 to 2012, divided it by total acres, that percentage times total base acres would be the one that that makes those payments. So those are the two choices.
Right, and I always like to emphasize that this is a complex farm bill. There's a lot of choices that need to be made, or kind of three major decisions on each FSA farm. But really, when you get into it, once you get past understanding the information you need and entering that in, and getting past the calculations that those numbers go through, the payment yield update and then the base acre reallocation decisions are fairly straightforward in terms of what you have to choose between. There's only two options. On the payment yield, it's your current payment yields. Then you enter in the data and you get an updated option. It's just the choice between that or the other. It's not going to be a range of choices. For every crop on any individual FSA farm, you're going to have what's the current yield, what's given the information I have available, what is my updated yield number. It's going to be two things you're choosing between. Same thing on the base acre reallocation. At the FSA farm level, you're going to have your current base acres, the numbers here in the far left columns in the tool, or those calculated numbers based on the planted acreage history information that you enter. It's one or the other. It's really only the choice between your current or that reallocated number that's based on the regulations for calculating those.
We had this question when we're looking at the acre allocation tool. You should enter zeros here, and in fact, if you don't enter zero, you're going to get a message that says you've entered a invalid entry. Zeros mean that you didn't plant the crop here in this tool. In the updated yield tool, though, don't enter zero if there was no plantings of that crop that year, because the a zero will be replaced by the plug yield, which isn't the case if you did not plant that crop. So,
and maybe we can work on getting some help to describe that as you're using the tool into this. Those are great questions, though. There is a difference between a missing yield or a yield not existing in the payment yield update versus a very low yield or a zero yield. Whereas in base acre reallocation, if you didn't plant, that needs to be entered as a zero because that does impact the reallocation calculations.
There was a question about this formula for calculating the percentage in each crop, and when we calculate those percentages for that go to each program crop, what you do is actually add up 2009, 10, 11, and 12 acres in each crop, add up the total
planted,
and divide the acres planted in the crop divided by total planted acres.
Across all crops.
So if you're making those calculations, what this should be for wheat, you would add up these three numbers. So that's your total
wheat acreage.
You would add to that your total dry pea acres for total plantings. Total wheat divided by total dry peas gives you a percent that you multiply by this total base acres.
Total wheat divided by total wheat plus total dry peas in this case. Would give you the percentage. That percentage is then multiplied by your total base, and that gives you the new reallocated base acreage for that crop. So again, if you add up 82.07 and 64.93, you're also going to get 147. That doesn't mean you planted 147 acres on this farm across different crops each year, but that is the base that is established for this farm, total base. So again, that's why they call it a reallocation, not a base acre update. A base acre update would imply that base acre numbers could change. Base acre numbers don't change, just how they're allocated. That 147 acres is allocated among the crops that you planted from 09 to 2012 is what can change.
And this number here, this 139.78, or any one of these numbers, is if you're going back to this sheet, it's planted acres plus prevented planted acres plus double crop acres. Subsequent acres do not enter into the calculations. It's planted, prevented, and double crop acres. So if you add those three up, that's the number that goes there.
Got a question. So the question, excuse me. So this base acre reallocation, so it allows for crop rotation in base acres where the other tool does not. Not sure exactly what they're referring to as the other tool. Maybe payment yields is what they're referring to there. If you rotated crops, you rotated crops. The way that's treated for payment yields, Gary kind of addressed that in his example where you might only have in that 2008 to 2012 period, if you were rotating corn and soybeans in a 50-50 rotation on that FSA farm, planting everything to corn one year, everything to beans the next, that means you're only going to have either 2 years of yields or 3 years of yields over that 5-year period. In that case, only 2 or 3 years are going to be used to calculate that average, 90% of that then is your updated payment yield option. For base acre reallocation, again, if you rotated crops, that will impact your base acre reallocation numbers. If you didn't plant a crop on a farm in 1 year, you enter 0. That acreage was planted to other crops. That will impact the calculation and how those acres are reallocated. So either way, the rotation does matter, and it is allowed in the way that the payment yield update's calculated, as well as how the base acre reallocation is updated.
So in this example, I just now put an example in here. 200 acres, and we've rotated this farm. 200 acres of wheat, then canola, wheat, then canola. We hit calculate recalculated base. Now note, we're going to have 50% in each one of these two crops because that's what we planted.
Yeah, the math is a lot easier here. So over the course of those 4 years, we planted a total of 800 crop acres. That's 400 in wheat and 400 in canola. 400 of the 800 went to wheat, so the percentage is 50%. 50% of 147 base acres is 73.5. You get the same thing for canola.
And let me just do one more example here. Let's say you have 3 years of wheat, 1 year of canola. Now this is going to be 3/4 wheat, 1/4 canola.
Yep, so 75% of 147 would be where the 110.25 comes from for wheat, and 25% would be where the 36.75 reallocated acres for canola number would come from.
Also note that in each one of these years, we're planting more acres than our total base acres, but our base acres are not being changed at all. It's a total base acres. Let me do one more example and say we've got 20 acres. So we're now underplanting our base by a significant number, and those numbers aren't going to change because the percentage didn't change. It doesn't matter what your plantings are relative to your total base acres. So that's the way this works. We had a question about irrigated and non-irrigated acres, and the only time irrigated and non-irrigated acres matter in this calculations is if you're in a county where our county makes payments based on irrigated versus non-irrigated acres. So, and you will know that. Another question is, how is CRP handled if it comes out of production? Generally speaking, when CRP comes out of production, you add base acres to the base of that farm, and my guess is it would be given the same percent. So you would have total base acres increase, and the proportions would change relative to the proportions that you currently have on that operation. All right, we're moving on to step 4. And by the way, if you're looking, now we're sort of here's our reallocated acres. And how do you make the decision between existing acres and reallocated acres? And a lot of that's going to depend on what you expect the crop planting acres, or excuse me, the expected payments from each one of those crops to look like. If you expect in this example wheat to make higher payments than canola, you probably would be going more this direction. But in that case, we have to come down to those decisions on Ark County and PLC.
Yeah. So again, as you work through these 7 steps and go back and forth and reanalyze things, the base acre reallocation decision, especially the payment yield update decision, is fairly straightforward. If you can update yields and you have the records to justify those, the numbers in that yield history that will increase your payment yields, we'd recommend go ahead and doing that crop by crop on your FSA farms. The reallocate base acre decision, again, it's simple in terms of you're going to have a choice of current or whatever that reallocated number is on your FSA farm. But to make that decision, we'd recommend that you really go in and do some analysis of the programs and look at based on where you're located, what you think prices are going to do over the next Farm Bill period. Which program is going to generate payments for which crop, and use that to help inform your decision between your two base acre choices, current base acres or reallocated base acres. So step 4, again in the process, once you've gone through, collected all the information you need, taken a look at your current payment yields versus the numbers you could update those to, taking a look at your current base acres versus what you could potentially reallocate those to. Now it's time to get into looking at the different programs. So step 4 in our 7-step process starts that analysis, and we start off by recommending that you take a look at the county level revenue option, ARC County, versus the price loss coverage program, or the PLC program. So again, these program election decisions, the person making those decisions or the people making those decisions are those that have an interest in the crop or in the production. So again, that could vary between types of rental agreements and how that's set up. The ARC County program, again, is county-based. It's a revenue program. On the left side of your screen there, the slide goes through some of the calculations that are done to make that program work. It's based on a benchmark revenue, 5-year Olympic average of county-level yields, and a 5-year Olympic average of national marketing year average prices for each program crop is used to develop that benchmark revenue. In those yield histories, there are rules that would replace any extremely low yields. Anything below 70% of the county T yield would be replaced by 70% of that transition yield. Any year in which a price is below the PLC reference price, that PLC reference price would be used for that crop in the 5-year Olympic average price history. So the product of those two 5-year Olympic averages, price and yields, is the benchmark. The guarantee then, the revenue level below which payments would be triggered, is 86% of that benchmark, so it's like an 86% coverage level. In any given year, then they're going to calculate an actual revenue, which is the actual county average yield multiplied by the actual marketing year average price. Your payment then is just the difference between the guarantee and the actual, if actual revenues fall below that guarantee, but it is capped at 10% of the benchmark. So it really just provides coverage from 86% of the benchmark down to 70% or 76% of the benchmark, 10% range there on benchmark revenue. Your payment rate then is that payment rate dollar amount, either the difference between actual and guaranteed revenue, or possibly the maximum payment of 10% of the benchmark, and that payment amount is made out on 85% of the base acres for the crop. So again, it's a county level program, and it's a revenue based program that's based on yields and prices, averages of yields and prices that will change through time, because it is a 5-year rolling average that's used to calculate that benchmark each year. PLC, price loss coverage, is another one of your 3 program choices. Both ARC County and PLC, you could select them at the crop level on your FSA farm. So again, you could mix the 2 programs on any given FSA farm, have PLC for one crop, ARC County for another. PLC is a target price program. You can see the reference price program, which is now what they're referring to them as. You can see the reference prices for the program crops in the table in that slide there. For corn, it's $3.70, soybeans, $8.40 per bushel. That reference price is compared to the marketing year average price during for each one of those crops. If the marketing year average price falls below that reference price, that triggers a payment rate, the difference between the two. That is capped, or the PLC payments will cut off or would cut off if actual prices got as low as the crop's loan rate, in which case we'd be talking about loan deficiency payments again, or marketing loan gains. So PLC does have a maximum coverage. It's the difference between that reference price you see there in that table and then whatever the loan rate is for the crop if prices did get that low.
But by the way, if you go into our step 4s in our Farm Bill toolbox, there are videos that discuss this decision, the PLC decision, and our county decision. They're roughly each about 5 minutes, but they run through a couple of examples of how those programs work. So, and gives programs here. We also have on our APAS tool a sample farm, and here we are going to estimate each one of those ARC County, PLC, and ARC individual payments for a sample farm in a county. I am going to click there, and I'm going to select an Illinois farm, and we'll do Macon County. I saw some people from Macon County here, so you're lucky today.
And as Gary's selecting this again, the nice thing about this, the option here is that this is a relatively quick look at the programs. It's a way to compare the 3 program choices without having to enter in a whole lot of information other than your location. And then we do have some price scenarios you can play with here to see how those affect things.
So so if you go through this, we'll show you the what sample or acreages look like in Macon County and all crop reporting districts in that area. And we're going to do a corn soybean example for Macon County because that's about all they have there is corn and soybeans. These percentages or these acres you can change, 522, 318. If you wanted a different number there, you could use those. These numbers are set so that approximately $500,000 of revenue are generated by the same proportion of acres in each year. We then, if you go into expected payments, it's going to give you expected payments for ARC County, ARC Individual, and PLC. And the first bar is for year 1 for our sample farm, then all years.
And that's that all year. The second bar there is just an average payment level if you're looking at this over the whole 5-year Farm Bill period. The first bar is the expected payment just for 2014.
So this gives us it for all crops. We can break it down by corn. So in corn, we're expecting pretty large payments for ARC County in 2014. Then these are the average for 2014 through 18. Coming over here, this is price loss coverage. ARC Individual goes away because ARC Individual is a whole farm policy. It includes all crops. ARC PLC, then PLC average over these 5 years. And here we also throw in SCO. And SCO, this is the payments that we expect minus the premium that farmers pay. And that coverage, that SCO policy is now at 80%. If you wanted to look at it at 85, you could click there and it would redraw the chart, and that number is going to get less because it's now going from 86 to 85%. The big thing here, though, is we have these are all driven by what you expect prices to be, and we have 3 sets of prices here: CBO prices, USDA projected prices, and FAPRE prices. For our purposes, CBO prices are higher than all the others, 435 in 2017, for example. USDA is lowest, 347, and FAPRE is in the middle, 412.
And again, these are all just different kind of nationally recognized payment or price level forecasts for commodities. They came out at different times during the year, which is one of the reasons why they don't completely agree. But they're in there, and you can select the 3 different prices from the 3 sources just to compare how that impacts the relative performance of the programs here. So Gary's got CBO prices in there now. I think he's going to switch to USDA probably.
And now and USDA, remember, USDA has much lower prices, and PLC is going to come up closer to ARC County. You can see here on a 5-year basis, PLC now comes much closer. And then if we go to FAPRE prices, you'll see where we're at on FAPRE prices. The program choice decision is going to have to be made by March 31st. We would suggest waiting because, in particular, you're going to know. We're estimating this bar right now. This bar is based on average yields across the counties. We know across much of the Midwest the yields are going to be above average, but we really don't have an estimate of those yet. We would suggest waiting to make these decisions until March, because in February, at the end of February, NASS will announce county yields, at which time we will be able to much more accurately estimate what our county payments are going to be for 2014. So this bar you'll know with almost certainty. Actually, we'll still have a little bit of a variation expected on what market year average price is, but there's we'll see what those look like. This also shows, and we can go to a 5-year horizon. We give it for Ark County for corn, PLC for corn, 5-year average. This is FAPRE prices. Here's USDA prices, and here is CBO prices.
What Gary switched to here is an expected program payment per acre for each crop. So again, the two buttons you have the choice between here is a payment, a total payment amount for a sample farm, and then we also have that broken down on a per acre basis here in the screen that we're looking at right now.
So a question came in: What about PLC in 2014? And let's just talk about this in corn. Corn PLC, the reference price is $3.70. If we have a market year average price, and that market year average price is going to be the average of all cash prices in the U.S., that market year average price is began to be set in September 2014. It will end calculations in August 2015. So we only have 1 month, and I don't even think we know what the 1 month average price is yet for September. It will be released here the last part of this month. If that market year average is below 370, there will be a payment on PLC. It will be that payment rate times the program yield that you selected earlier times 0.85, which is the percent of base acres in that crop. Couple points here, though, coming back here. No matter what price series you select, corn makes higher payments than soybeans, and that's pretty. You can go any place in the U.S. and that looks the same. Corn makes higher payments than soybeans. That coming back to the reallocation decision, if you're in a situation where you have corn and soybean acres only, we would suggest you think strongly about the allocation with the most corn. I'm going to go down to Washington County, Illinois. Here's corn, soybeans, wheat, USDA prices, FAPRE prices, and CBO prices. The ranking's pretty much always the same: corn, wheat, soybeans. So again, in southern Illinois, the decision will be keeping those corn and wheat acres versus soybean acres. Southern Illinois, or any place where double crop has become more prevalent, may be surprised with how many acres go to soybeans in the reallocated base, because double crop acres account for them. So,
Jim is telling us that is 1 minute from the time we're supposed to finish the webinar. We do have some questions, so we'd like to try to address some of those we didn't get to. So we got a trend-adjusted yield question. Gary, you can probably address that one the best.
Trend-adjusted yield will not. So the question is trend-adjusted yield a factor for ARC or PLC? And the answer to that is no. ARC will be only considers county yields. trend adjustment is not part of that procedure. PLC also is not. Our trend adjusted yields is only a crop insurance product. Payment limits. So if you have a payment, there are payment limits. It's $125,000 per individual. So if you have two individuals involved in the operation, it's going to be based on Social Security number. Two individuals, $250,000. One individual, $125,000. There also is a AGI limit of $900,000. If you have an AGI over $900,000, you will not be eligible for commodity program payments.
And that the $125,000 per individual or per entity payment limit does apply. It's the aggregate support received from all of the programs. So again, depending on the decisions you make, you could have crops on some farms enrolled in PLC, crops in other farms, or even on the same farm enrolled in Ark County. It's the payment. It's any support you receive from all of those programs on all your farms for all of the crops that is considered under that $125,000 payment limit. I'll just say it because it's a question we keep getting. SCO is an insurance program, so if you're using PLC and then adding SCO to that payment limit does not apply to SCO payments. SCO is going to be based on what you plant. It's an insurance program, so just like RP, YP, the individual plans that you might use, there is no limit on the indemnity payments or net indemnity payments you could receive from SCO.
We keep getting a question, how will seed corn payment yields be handled? And my best guess is that it will be handled the same way it was last time, which will be higher than the actual yield. But we haven't seen the regulations for those. All right. In a predominantly corn, soybean, Midwest area, is there any long-term argument for keeping a portion of your base acres in wheat? One thing, wheat will have higher payments than soybeans, so you'll need to make those comparisons between what the wheat acres you lose and soybean acres you probably pick up. I don't see any really risk management reason to keep wheat acres in your base acres, but
unless you're continuing to plant wheat. And you want some revenue or price protection associated with those planted acres, then you'd consider maybe keeping some base in wheat. But
we showed a FSA letter that you should have received from FSA. Landowner and farm operator should have received this letter, obviously with the farms that they are having interest in. If you go to your FSA office, they can give you the same information again. So get there. If you updated yields in 2014, so this is a question about updating yields. We had an opportunity in the 2004 Farm Bill?
2002.
2002 Farm Bill, 2002 Farm Bill to update yields. If you updated your yields then, yes, those are the same program yields that are showing up on this form, and yes, they will be higher than had you not updated. So
right.
And again, that's the argument for why, remember, those program yields only enter into the calculation of price loss coverage payments. We would still suggest updating them.
Right. And maybe just even to simplify or generalize the question, it's a pretty specific question about one farm situation. But again, on that FSA letter, the 2014 CC yields, so the letter should be on the box at the bottom of the left panel of your screen. The 2014 CC yield should be the current countercyclical yield for that crop on that farm. So whenever you updated that last, it should be the most current countercyclical yield on the farm. It may be a yield that was established 20, 30 years ago. It may be one that you updated the last time we had a chance to update. But that is the number that FSA has on record as the current payment yield number that will be used. That's the one that you have a choice between that and an updated number based on your yield history from '08 to 2012. So if you think that number's wrong, that's something that you should go in and talk to your FSA office about now and get that cleared up. Because again, that's one of your options on payment yield updating. It's that number in that letter, or whatever number comes out of the update calculations based on your '08 to 2012 yields.
The March 31st deadline for program choice is after the 3/15 March crop insurance deadline. And the question is, will you have to make the SCO decision before, or PLC decision before you sign up for SCO on March 15th? We don't know that answer, but here's how they handled it on wheat. On wheat, you could have signed up for SCO but had the opportunity to say you don't want SCO by the either December 15th or the acreage reporting date, whichever is earlier. My guess is that, and I don't know, my guess is they'll do the same thing for SCO on corn and soybeans and anything else with the March 15th deadline. That's another reason why we would suggest waiting, because we will not see SCO premiums until we're closer to that deadline, and then we can make comparisons of SCO premiums to other items. Yes, this is a question. FSA needs yields from 2008 to 12, but acres from 2009 through 12. That is correct. They are different periods. And there's also, if you look at it closely, there's awful different plug yields. There's one plug yield for Ark County, which will be different for Ark individual, and in which case Ark County is using 75% of the county average. Ark individual is using something else. I can't remember what it is right now. And so there are different plug yields for different programs.
How to calculate your, again, I'm assuming that this is a question on payment yield updating, so how to calculate yield if in a corn bean rotation. Do we only use the yields in which the crop was planted, or do we have to use county average when we did not plant? In that payment yield update, if you did not plant the crop, that's not a year in which you'll have to use any kind of plug yield. That's a year that will be excluded from the average when you're calculating payment yield updates. So again, Gary's entering an example here, Illinois, Alexander County in Illinois for corn. So here we'd have 128 bushel yield in '08. We did not plant in '09, so we leave that blank. 120 bushel yield in 2010 and 190 bushel yield in 2011. 2012, we did not plant corn on this farm, so we leave it blank. If we calculate it, the 129 updated payment yield number is 90% of the average for '08, 2010, and 2011. So if you did not plant the crop, the payment yield update calculation just will not use that year in the average. Question here. Let's see. Some of these questions are a little longer. We got to take some time to read them.
What if my tenant has combined my farm and another farm that I do not own? Can I get FSA to separate out my farm so I can make the yield and base acre decisions on my farm? I don't know the answer to that.
Yep, that's a pretty specific question. I would check with FSA on that.
In general, they will say that reconstitutions made now, you cannot change reconstitutions now. You can't make a reconstitution now and make the program choice decisions. There was a deadline for making reconstitutions, and that's either June or some place earlier than now. If I'm a landowner with an example, 80-acre farm and it's 50-50 split, should my base acres be 40 or the whole 80 acres?
So here it's a split on a share crop, so 50% to the landowner, 50% to the tenant. The farm in the letter, both the tenant and the landowner should receive the letter, right, Gary?
That's right.
And the base acreage should be based on the whole farm. So the tenant didn't get a base acre numbers for their share, and the landowner shouldn't have got information on their share for base. It should have been base for the entire farm on both.
Of course, if you have a 50-50 share, the landowner gets 50% of the payments, and the share rent farmer gets 50% of the payments.
ARC versus PLC, what information will be available by the March 31st deadline? So we should have at least the first September, October, November, January, February prices. So the first 5 months in that marketing year, or first 6 months in the marketing year of prices. So we'll have a better idea of what the 2014 marketing year average price will be. That'll be important for PLC and both county and individual ARC. Again, historically, we've had those NAS county yields come out in February, so we should also have those available to us. So we should know the actual 2014 county yields, which will be important for county ARC. We'll have a better idea of what the 2014 marketing year average price will be, which will impact all three of the program decisions.
And we'll also have the SCO premiums and know those exactly by the end of February, 1st of March. Producer do not report. All right, so so we have a question. I'm going to reword this a little bit. So your crop insurance records are for an enterprise unit, and you have multiple FSA farms in that. Is that how you would read that quote?
Yeah, basically the crop insurance units don't necessarily have to line up with FSA farms.
And that's true.
Yeah. Yeah. So you might be insuring using enterprise units, and that's going to include more than likely multiple FSA farms in that enterprise unit. And even if you're on optional or basic units, they're not necessarily going to be the same as your FSA farms. So what was the question?
Have fun with that. I guess,
yeah, so I guess the question is they've said they'll accept crop insurance records for yields, but what if that's based on an enterprise unit that isn't for the, whatever the unit is doesn't line up for the FSA farm?
Well, before we give our knee-jerk answer, let's run that by FSA, and we'll write some. That's a very good. No, that's a very good question, and we'll get some more information out. Anything we say right now could be very wrong.
Not very wrong, but still up for interpretation.
Yeah. What if you had land in CRP from 2008 through 2012, you have no yields? That's right, you have no yields, and you really don't have the ability to update. So if I have a FSA farm number with two different landlords' farms, do I enter the average of both farms, or do I need to go down to the individual tract number and work upwards? Of course, they are in different counties. We have another. We need an interpretation on this question. If you have two different landowners, how do I enter the average? Well, that's another good question. We don't know the answer right now.
And mainly we don't want to give a wrong answer. So we'll all these are great questions. We'll be building a frequently asked questions area on the Farm Bill Toolbox site. Again, the link to that is up on the left panel of your screen. So these are good questions that there may not exactly be an answer to yet. We'll have to work through some of these issues with. You'll have to work through some of these issues with FSA during sign up. But we'll try to get you answers to those and get that information out in our frequently asked questions section on the Farm Bill Toolbox website. It is 9:15, Jim. I think we kind of need to wrap this up. I don't know if you see any other quick questions, Gary, you could get in just a few seconds.
So if I plant a crop and there are no base acres for that crop, you will not get a payment. That is true. So that get a lot of questions related to that. These programs do operate on base acres. You do have a chance to reallocate those base acres, but if you're planning,
if you've got all your base in corn and beans, and you decide to plant wheat to an FSA farm, you're still going to get payments or not get payments based on what happens with corn and beans for those programs. One exception to that, I guess, would be the individual ARC option, and again, that gets a little more complicated than we can address here in the few minutes we have to wrap up the webinar this morning. Again, your payment is tied to the number of base acres you have for individual ARC, but it does actually matter what you plant. For PLC and ARC County, though, you could be planting a crop and not get a payment because you don't have base in that crop, or vice versa. You could be not planting a crop for which you have base acres in, not planting corn one year, but getting a corn payment because you have base in corn and a payment is triggered on one of those programs. So the payments, at least for ARC County and PLC, are really tied to base acres, and it doesn't matter necessarily what you plant in any given crop year moving forward over the next five crop years, or the next 4 crop years. 2014 is wrapping up, I guess.
We didn't answer all their questions. By the way, both of these things are available on the internet. They're free. You can go there and look at those. We are going to go do more future webinars next week. We have these scheduled next week, and we are going to break these webinars down in the future to look more specifically at an individual decision. So we'll have one on yield updating, one on reallocating acres, one on program choice, and one on SCO. That probably won't happen next week yet because we're still early in the season, but yes, we will be doing more webinars on each one of the decisions and getting more detailed information on those matters. If we didn't answer your question, we're going to record all these questions and we will get answers to them, and we will put those on our website and organize those and begin our frequently asked questions. So apologize for not getting to them all. Thank you for being here this morning. We'll do this again next week at 8 o'clock again. If you have any more questions that you didn't answer, there's also at our Farm Bill Toolbox. Email us or call us. You might want to email us because a lot of your questions will take a little time. Email us and we'll get you some questions back. Again, appreciate your time this morning.
Yep. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your morning, and hopefully we'll see some of you again next week.